Thank you, Aisha, and good morning to our guests from the East, and good afternoon for our guests from the West. I'm delighted to be connected with you today for this special and important webinar on the impact of coronavirus on a specific and important topic, which is climate change and environment. I'm grateful for the lead co-chair, Dr. Noura Mansouri, for her effort in leading this task force with the genuine help and support from many of the scholars that are joining us today, and they are the co-chairs of this task force, as well as very important contribution from the co-authors or the lead authors and the co-authors and the members of this task force. So thank you very much for your contribution and so on the policy briefs. We definitely, the reason for this webinar is that we want to increase the communication between the T20 community and the G20 leaders, especially on issues related to COVID-19. We are living in unprecedented time with this pandemic, and I don't want to go into the discussion of how this changed our ways of lives and the way we do our work. I think in many occasions we talked about this more often, but I think if we want to highlight something more on the subject, I guess the priority for the countries, which is reasonable to be assumed, that protecting human health, and that is, as many other medicine for this crisis, is coming at a very major cost, which is a socio-economic cost. If we look at the early estimates of the socio-economic impact of the pandemic, we see that global economic growth is turning into a negative territory. Unemployment is rising in many countries. SMEs are going out of business, and so on and so forth. These are probably and hopefully will be short-term lived consequences of the pandemic, and we will recover from them. There will be other long-term effect of the pandemic, and these are related to some pressing issues, including climate change and environment. And I think if we get out of this pandemic with one important message, that international collaboration and the role of multilateralism is important in facing this pandemic and also other related issues on climate and so on, I think that is an important lesson, and to keep it up and maintain that enthusiasm or approach in collaboration, not only for resolving the pandemic, but also on addressing climate-related issues. On climate specific, over the 3 months that passed under this crisis, we've seen emission decline globally, and we've seen fossil fuel consumption declining and also contributing to emission decline. And I think if these gains should be kept moving forward. And if we look at different asset prices within different markets globally, we see that major stock markets and assets are falling. And relatively, if you look at the green financial assets, you will see that they relatively was not impacted by as much as other assets. And if there is a lesson there, and it's saying, especially for this task force, that the more sustainable our economies get, the stronger we will be, and more resilient, and less impact on the society we will see moving forward. I'm grateful for this task force policy submission, policy brief submission, which happened since the start of April. And through the review process, I believe many of these policy briefs are returned now to the authors. And the second submission will be for next June. So thank you very much for your contribution. I believe there was a very short window to include related issues to COVID-19 within the first draft, but I think that can be incorporated, building on the discussion during this webinar and also other meetings for the task force, to incorporate the impact of the COVID-19 on our policy recommendations. So when we give these recommendations to the leaders of the G20, they'll be more timely and relevant to the issues that are being discussed among the leaders themselves. So thank you very much, and I wish, I hope there will be a lively discussion today. I look forward to the discussion and also the questions from the member of the task force.